The lingering savory ghost of dinner hung in the air, mingling with the sharp, clean scent of lemon dish soap. It was the signature perfume of domesticity after dark. I sat at the dining room table, my thumb tracing the wedding band on my ring finger around and around. The cool platinum warmed against my skin, its polished surface reflecting the flat white light of the overhead fixture like a tiny frozen moon. My phone screen, dark on the table, lit up with a push notification. The headline from the Chicago Tribune was jarring. European-trained piano prodigy Julian Vance returns to the U.S. Debut concert sold out. The accompanying photo showed Julian in a perfectly rumpled white shirt, the top two buttons undone to reveal a hint of sharp collarbone. He was seated at a black grand piano, his profile turned to the camera. The lighting cast has lowered eyelashes into dramatic shadow on his pale cheeks, giving him an air of carefully crafted brokenness, a tragic hands-off fragility. The comment section predictably was a disaster, a torrent of, "OMG, he's so broken, my heart, and I just want to wrap him in a blanket and protect him." And that tragic artist vibe gets me every time. A dry, ambiguous sound, somewhere between a scoff and a sigh, escaped my throat. I knew the script. It was a classic Lifetime movie plot. The idealized ex returns, old flames are rekindled, and a hapless husband gets kicked to the curb. I could already see the next few scenes playing out in my head. Sophie would get jumpy, her eyes distant. Her phone would become a new limb, and she'd flinch every time a text notification chimed, shooting me a nervous glance. Then one day she'd approach me, her face a mask of pained resolve. "Ethan, we need to talk." And the scene after that would be me holding a cardboard box of my belongings, standing on the curb of the brownstone we'd spent 5 years turning into a home, watching the front door click shut. The deadbolt, a final metallic thunk announcing that I, Ethan Hayes, was officially out of the picture. 5 years of marriage, erased by a single brooding glance. The thought was a needle sinking deep into the softest part of my heart, releasing a sharp, lingering ache. My fingers tighten on my ring, my knuckles turning white. Fine, let it come. I'd roll with the punches. If I had one thing, it was a healthy dose of self-awareness and, well, the grit to dig in for a long fight. The sound of the faucet running came from the kitchen. Sophie had her back to me, efficiently rinsing the last of the dinner plates. She wore a soft beige loungewear set, the sleeves pushed up to her elbows, revealing the smooth, strong lines of her forearms. The warm light from over the sink traced the delicate curve of her back, making the scene feel deceptively peaceful. "Soft," I began, my throat suddenly dry. I tried to make my voice sound casual. "That Julian Vance concert seems like a big deal, huh? It's all over the news." The water stopped. Sophie placed the clean plate gently in the drying rack, shook the water from her hands, and turned around. Her face was placid, her eyes as calm as if I just asked whether she wanted pancakes or an omelette for breakfast tomorrow. "Oh, Julian." She picked up a dish towel, slowly drying her hands. "Yeah, I saw it. My entire Instagram feed is flooded with it." She paused, walking over to the table. She picked up her own phone, unlocked it, and swiped a few times before holding it out to me. It was the promotional photo for his concert. "Look at this picture," she said, tapping the screen with her fingertip. Her brow furrowed with an expression of undisguised disdain. "How many years has it been? And he's still pulling that same tired pose. The sad eyes, the pursed lips, like the whole world owes him a living. Tragic fragility. You mean moping? It's just so draining to look at." I was stunned. The entire speech I prepared in my head. All the lines about cherished memories and things left unsaid died on my lips. This was not in the script. She pulled her phone back, her disgust deepening. "And the shirt collar open that wide. Is he afraid people won't see his ribs? He's so skinny. Looks like a strong gust of wind would knock him over. Where's the strength in that? Back in college. That whole act might have worked on some of the freshmen, but we're pushing 30 now. Doesn't he get tired of being so extra?" "It's just a cringy," I repeated, feeling my entire understanding of the situation crumble. Julian Vance, the guy who had been the moon in the sky of Sophie's youth, the melancholy artist she'd supposedly pined for, was now, in her own words, posing, moping a beanpole and cringy. Sophie shot me a look that said, "What's so surprising about that?" She walked past me, toward the living room sofa. "Totally," she said over her shoulder. "He acts like some rare misunderstood flower, but back in the dorms, he was so broke he got busted by the RA for stealing toilet paper from the communal bathroom, humiliated himself in front of the whole floor. The only people he impresses are the ones who don't actually know him." She flopped onto the couch, grabbed her iPad, and started a reality show. The volume just loud enough to drown out the frantic, confused pounding of my heart. I stood frozen, a statue in the middle of our dining room. My head was buzzing with her dismissive comment about him stealing toilet paper. The idealized soft focus image of the one that got away shattered, a massive crack running right through it. I tried to process this bombshell of a backstory, then looked over at my wife, who was now fully absorbed in the antics on her screen, chuckling to herself. There wasn't a trace of nostalgia, conflict, or longing on her face. She talked about him like he was a distant, slightly annoying cousin you tried to avoid at Thanksgiving. What was going on? The curtain hadn't even risen, and one of the main actors had just walked off the stage. All my carefully constructed defenses, my readiness for emotional warfare, suddenly had nowhere to go. It was like swinging a bat at a fast ball and hitting nothing but air. An empty, slightly ridiculous feeling. This was suddenly getting interesting. The next few days were eerily quiet. The media buzz around. Julian didn't die down. His concert was a triumph, and critics hailed him as a lost soul of the arts, a poet of the keys who carries the sorrows of a generation. On Instagram, a few of Sophie's old college friends who'd known Julian posted pictures of their ticket stubs, sign programs, and selfies with the prince himself. The captions were full of fawning praise. "Still got it, even more devastatingly handsome now." Like a signal on high alert, I watched Sophie's reactions. She'd scroll past these posts, her expression blank, not even bothering to tap the like button. One afternoon, her best friend from college, Chloe, posted a 9-photo carousel from backstage. In one picture, Julian was looking down at Chloe, his profile softened by the lighting, looking impossibly gentle and vulnerable. Chloe's caption read, "He's still the same person. So gentle and fragile. Makes you just want to take care of him." My stomach dropped. I glanced at Sophie on the couch. She was eating a bowl of grapes, and she stared at that photo for a solid 3 seconds. Then she gave the tiniest, almost imperceptible eye roll, and with a decisive flick of her thumb, swiped past it to a video of a cat falling off a bookshelf. A genuine smile finally breaking across her face. "Sophie, Chloe's new post." I began testing the waters. What post?" she asked, not looking up. She popped another grape in her mouth. "Oh, the one with Julian. The photo's okay, I guess, but the filter she used. He's so pale. He looks like he's been spackled." Chloe's always been such a sucker. Sucker. I'll let the rest of my sentence die. Sophie's attitude wasn't just disinterest. It was a full-body, almost physical aversion. My lingering theory of the idealized ex was starting to look like a joke I was telling only to myself. And yet, there were undercurrents. Sophie had started working late more often. No matter how busy she was, she rarely stayed late more than 2 or 3 nights a week. But since Julian's return, she'd been late 4 nights in a row. She'd come home exhausted, carrying the faint, unfamiliar scent of cologne. Not her usual crisp citrus perfume, but something deeper with notes of sandalwood and leather. A niche smoky scent. I'd smelled something similar when ID paused by one of his concert posters downtown. It was distinctive. Suspicion once it takes root grows like a weed. My rational brain told me Sophie's disdain for Julian was genuine. But the lingering scent of that cologne and the way she'd sometimes take a call, her voice clipped and distant. I mentioned, "Got it. I'm busy," were like tiny fish hooks tugging at my peace of mind, making me restless and anxious. On Friday night, she sent the usual text, "Project, debrief tonight. Going to be late. Don't wait up for me." It was followed by a yawning cat emoji. Everything seemed normal. I stared at the message, my thumb hovering over the screen before typing back a simple, "Okay, be safe." I put the phone down. The house was so quiet I could hear the ticking of the clock on the wall. On the table sat the dinner I'd carefully made, now destined to be eaten alone. A tide of doubt, resentment, and a powerful sense of dread washed over me. I couldn't just sit here. On a dark impulse, I grabbed my car keys. Outside, the city lights streaked across my windshield in a blur of neon. I knew the address of Sophie's firm, and I knew the upscale coffee shop in River North, their team, often used for meetings. I parked in an inconspicuous spot across the street, the cafe's wide, plate glass windows in full view. The minutes crawled by. People came and went. Finally, a familiar silhouette appeared. Sophie walking out onto the sidewalk alongside a man in a dark gray cashmere coat. It was Julian. The amber glow of a street light fell on him, highlighting his thin frame. He leaned in towards Sophie, his head tilted, that signature look of fragile melancholy on his face, his lips moving as he spoke to her in a low voice. Sophie's expression was neutral. She just nodded occasionally, her pace steady. My heart plunged. A block of ice in my chest. So they were together. She had lied to me. The project debrief was a lie. Rage, cold and sharp, seized me. My hands clenched the steering wheel, my knuckles white. I stared, wanting to storm across the street to rip open his car door, to drag Sophie out to smash my fist into Julian's pretentious sad boy face. But a sliver of reason held me back. I watched as Julian reached out as if to tuck a strand of windblown hair behind Sophie's ear. But she, in a motion so smooth it was almost imperceptible, leaned away just enough to avoid his hand, quicken her pace, and open the passenger side door herself, slipping inside. Julian's hand froze in Madar. He held the pose for a beat before letting it drop, then walked around to the driver's side. The car pulled out into traffic. I started my engine and followed, keeping a safe distance. A fire was burning in my chest, scorching my insides. But Sophie's subtle rejection. It was a tiny pinprick in my ballooning anger, creating the smallest fissure of doubt. The car didn't head towards some boutique hotel or private club. It drove straight to a luxury high-rise in Lincoln Park, Julian's new place. He pulled into the entrance of the underground garage, got out quickly, and hurried around to open Sophie's door for her, the ever-attentive gentleman. When she got out, he seemed to press her, leaning forward slightly, his posture low, almost pleading. The stark garage lighting illuminated Sophie's face perfectly. Her brow was furrowed, not with romantic conflict, but with pure, undiluted annoyance. It was bordering on disgust. She took a quick, sharp step back, putting distance between them, and said something, her words fast and clipped. I couldn't hear what it was, but the sharp gesture of her hand and the hard set of her jaw were like a bucket of ice water, dousing the fire in my chest. Julian froze, the carefully constructed mask of tragic vulnerability shattering into an expression of shock and humiliation that was almost comical. Sophie didn't give him a second glance. She turned on her heel and walked toward the elevator bank, the sharp, decisive clicks of her heels echoing in the concrete garage. Her retreat was absolute without a single look back. Julian was left standing alone, watching her disappear. The street light cast his dejected shadow long across the pavement. After a long moment, he slumped back in his car, but he didn't drive away. I sat in the darkness of my own car, feeling like I'd survived a silent explosion. The embers of my anger were still there, but they were buried under a mountain of confusion. Sophie's ice-cold rejection, Julian's pathetic, defeated posture. It was nothing like the passionate clandestine reunion I had imagined. What was she doing here? Why was he begging? A million questions swirled in my head, replacing the white-hot rage with a buzzing, chaotic mess. 3 days later, it was my birthday. Sophie had told me a week ago with a great show of apology that she had to attend a hugely important networking dinner. She promised she'd make it up to me. Work is work, I'd said, trying to sound understanding, but my heart felt like a lead weight. Another was it with Julian? The memory of the cologne in the scene at the garage returned, filling me with a suffocating dread. This was going to be a miserable birthday. That evening, I was staring into our sparsely populated refrigerator, debating the merits of instant ramen versus ordering a pizza when my phone rang. It was Sophie. The background was noisy. "Ethan," she said, her voice tight with an urgency I could feel even through the phone. I just sent you my location. Get over here now. Code red. I straightened up. What? What's wrong? I thought you had a dinner. Don't even ask. Julian completely sandbagged me. Her voice was laced with pure fury. He sold this to me as a chance to meet some major gallery owners, but it's a surprise birthday party for him. I'm stuck here with a bunch of his artsy friends. I don't know. It's a nightmare. You have to come get me. Just say you're picking me up. Give me an out. A birthday party for Julian, and I was the rescue mission. What the hell was this show? I stood there holding the phone, my brain struggling to catch up. Hurry, babe. The air in here is thick with Julian Vance brand angst. I think I'm going to suffocate, she whispered, yelled, a note of desperate, wheedling complaint in her voice. You're my only hope. Okay, I'm on my way. I hung up and looked at the location Sophie had sent. A well-known private arts club in the Gold Coast. My dread morphed into something more complex. Annoyance, amusement, and a small, warm flicker of being needed. All right, then I go. I had to see what kind of fresh hell this tortured prince was cooking up now. I pushed open the heavy ornate doors of the club, Ethetheria, and was hit by a wall of warm air smelling of champagne hors d'oeuvres and some expensive cloying incense, all set to the soundtrack of a low, meandering jazz piano. Crystal chandeliers cast a brilliant but cold light on the glittering, mingling crowd. At the center of it all, orbited by admirers, was Julian. He'd traded the white shirt for a tailored black velvet jacket that made his skin look even more ghostly. A few artfully placed strands of hair fell across his forehead, amplifying his roguish, artistic vibe. He held a champagne flute, his head cocked attentively as he listened to a woman dripping in diamonds, a perfectly calibrated, melancholy yet charming smile playing on his lips. He was magnetic. Sophie was standing alone in the shadows by a floor-to-ceiling window, clutching a glass of what looked like untouched club soda. Her fingers drumming an impatient rhythm against the glass. She was wearing a stunning architectural navy blue velvet dress that made her skin look like porcelain and her posture ramrod straight. She looked like a single defiant iris blooming in a hothouse of gaudy orchids. The moment she saw me, her eyes lit up like stars igniting in a dark sky. The forced, detached composure melted away, and her whole being came alive. Without hesitation, she set her glass down and strode toward me, cutting a path through the glittering, whispering throngs. The sharp, determined click of her heels on the marble floor drew eyes from all over the room, including those of the man at its center. "Husband," Sophie said, her voice not loud, but clear enough to carry in our corner of the room. She looped her arm through mine, her tone dripping with undisguised relief and affection. "You're finally here." I was dying of boredom. She leaned against me, her body warm, a clear signal of sanctuary found. I could feel the gazes land on us, curious, speculative, but one in particular from Julian's direction felt as sharp as a needle. A strange and wonderful sense of satisfaction washed over me, eclipsing all my earlier anxiety. I lifted my hand and with practiced intimacy, tucked a stray wisp of her hair behind her ear. "Here to take you home," I said, my voice low but steady in the suddenly quiet air. Julian's melancholic smile froze on his face, a perfect mask suddenly cracking. He excused himself from his admirers and champagne flute in hand began to walk toward us. He moved with a deliberate slowness as if each step was an immense, painful effort. He stopped in front of us, his eyes landing on Sophie first, a deep, complex look full of hurt, nostalgia, and 1,000 unspoken words. Only then did he turn to me, forcing a pale smile. "Mr. Hayes," he said, his voice a low, pleasant baritone with a hint of a rasp as if weathered by profound sorrow. "Ethan, thank you for coming to my birthday party." He put a slight pointed emphasis on the word my. I nodded, but before I could speak, Julian's gaze was already back on Sophie as if I were invisible. He took a deep breath like a man summoning all his courage, and for the inner pocket of his velvet jacket, he withdrew an